Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to DCS World. So yes, we're finally doing another DCS World video, and in today's video we'll be comparing the A-10A to the Su-25A. Now you guys might be wondering why I'm doing the A-10C. Well, there is no equivalent to the A-10C or the A-10C2 on the Russian side in DCS World, so we're going to stick to the A-10A and the Su-25A. And we're going to be trying out these two aircraft. We're going to be comparing them in a late 1980s, early 1990s sort of a mission where we will have to provide close air support, CAS. Now, I want to go ahead and compare both aircraft in terms of their weaponry and stuff like that, and in terms of how they fly and so on and so forth, but also in terms of the philosophy and the doctrine behind the thought process of each country. Obviously, the A-10 is from the USA, and the Su-25A is from the USSR. So this is going to be a very brief, shallow video. Obviously, we're not going to go into depth into that kind of thing, but I thought it would be an interesting video, a sort of a thought-provoking video on the two differences between the two different aircraft and the two different ideologies. So let's get this started. Okay, so these are our primary targets, and our primary targets consist of 4 main battle tanks and 2 supporting APCs. So we're looking for an attrition rate of 50% or higher, meaning that we're looking to inflict a 50% or more damage rate on our primary targets. And here is our secondary targets / support elements. So these aren't necessarily our primary targets, but these guys provide support to the main targets that we're trying to inflict damage on. So these secondary targets consist of AAA emplacements, manpad positions, as well as radar-guided AAA vehicles. But again, they're not our primary targets. Okay, so as I said, our main targets consist of main battle tanks. So these are going to be main battle tanks from the late Cold War. So these are the M60A3s, the T55As, and of course for APCs we have M113s, BMP2s, BMP1s, MTLBs. We also have radar-guided AAA vehicles such as the Shilka, and also we have the manpads, so the Stinger as well as the Igla anti-aircraft, shoulder-mounted anti-aircraft defensive systems as well, which will be the main threat to us while we conduct this CAS mission. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get into the aircraft and let's get this video started. Alright, so here we are in the A-10A first. So as you guys can see, we're carrying Mavericks. Yes, the A-10A could carry Maverick missiles, and in fact in Desert Storm the A-10A pilots used this to seek your head, as we are doing right now, to look around for targets. So it was kind of used as like a mini targeting pod. Obviously, this is before the A-10A was equipped with a targeting pod. So let's go ahead and lock one target up and rifle. There we go. So again, these are the AGM-65 Deltas. And let's go ahead and that comms menu keeps popping up. All right, let's go ahead and look up the other tank and rifle. There we go. So that's 2 Mavericks away, and we're looking for the 3rd and the 4th one as well. So obviously, as I said, our main targets are going to be, again, rifle, the main battle tanks, and then of course the supporting elements as well. And there we go, rifle again. So that's 4 Mavericks away. And let's go ahead and turn off. Okay, so the important thing is, guys, that you guys see that we were never closer than 7 miles to these targets over there. Now, we're not facing any kind of a sophisticated long-range radar-guided kind of a surface-to-air threat, but nonetheless, there is some small envelope air defense threats over there, as you guys saw in the introduction. But however, we were never closer than 7 miles, and I'm guessing none of those guys down there, if this was real, none of them would be able to spot us, none of them would be able to hear us, and those missiles would, as they're impacting right now, and you guys, I'm not sure if you guys can see it through the video, but the missiles have impacted now. So this gives the A-10 a tremendous amount of standoff capability. So not only that the missiles are very, very accurate, they're very, very precise, but also keep the pilot and the aircraft itself in a very safe distance at where the targets are, where the bad guys are. So you guys can see down there, there's the 4 tanks burning, 4 missiles fired, very, very accurate. A great standoff capability that the A-10 has because of the Maverick missile. Obviously, it started with the AGM-65 Alpha, and of course, as I said, we're using the AGM-65 Delta. So now we have options. The A-10 pilot has options. After delivering those four missiles, we're also carrying 5 Mark 84 2,000-pound bombs as well. Now I want to go ahead and get into a position where I can drop the remaining ordnance on my aircraft on the supporting element of that force down there. Now, of course, because there's a significant amount of threat down there. There's a man pad. There's as I said, radar guided AAA. We need to stay above 12,000 feet. If we can stay above 12,000 feet, 12 to 15,000 feet, we'll be safe. All right, let's go ahead and dive in. We'll do a pretty steep, like 60-degree dive, and then we'll drop the remaining ordnance on the supporting elements. And of course, trying to pull up really aggressively, dispensing lots of countermeasures. And of course, we have a jammer pod as well, which is activated. Hopefully, I don't see any missiles coming up at me. Oh, there we go. Nice. So the bombs just impacted the support elements of that tank platoon. So no surface-to-air missile launches yet. No manpads being launched at us. Again, as I said, staying above that 12 to 15,000 foot elevation kind of gives you that barrier, that distance between the threat and yourself. And you can only do that if you have a sophisticated weapon like the A-10, if you have a sophisticated weapon like the AGM-65 Deltas. And of course, we're able to deliver those bombs from such a high altitude so accurately because of the A-10's bombing computer, because of the HUD. Of course, the CCIP reticle, as you guys saw, allows us to remain at a relatively safe distance and to inflict really accurate, really precise damage on the enemy. However, we will get into this further at the end of the video. There is no such thing as a free lunch, guys. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So when you have all this tremendous capability, when you have all this precision, all this standoff capability, all this technology and tech, nothing is for free. So we'll discuss later once we get into the Su-25A as well. So there's always an upside, and then there's always a downside in the world. And as I said, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and everything has to be prioritized. And this is what this video is mostly about. All right, so let's go ahead and get inside the Su-25A. All right, guys. So here we are in the Su-25A, and of course, we're carrying rockets. So this is what the Russians, this is what the Soviets would have most likely used in the late 1980s. So the Su-25A, I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys a question. So I know you guys who are watching, obviously, DCS videos are aviation enthusiasts, and so let me go ahead and ask you a question. So which aircraft came out first, the A-10 or the Su-25? Now, don't cheat. Don't cheat. Go ahead and put it down in the comments section. Don't look it up on Google. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and answer that question for you right at the end of the video. Now, the Su-25A is a less sophisticated aircraft. It's a less sophisticated weapon system. It has less computers on board. For example, we don't have a HUD. We don't have a targeting pod. But still, the Su-25A still has some standoff capabilities. Obviously, if it's using the Kha-29 and the Kha-25, the KH-29, KH-25 laser-guided missiles. However, those missiles aren't fire and forget. So, as I said, the AGM-65s are a fire and forget missile. So we fire the missiles, then we can fly away, and the missile will guide by itself autonomously towards the target. But with the KH-29 and the KH-25 type missiles, they're laser guided, so we have to continuously point a laser target at the target until the point of impact. So not a very standoffish type weapon. But obviously the Russians and the Soviets absolutely love their dumbfire rockets, so those folding fin type rockets. So let's go ahead and dive on this target. So laser designator on. And of course, yeah, as I said, the Soviets loved using those rockets for their frontal aviations. All right, so let's go ahead and fire the S-25 rockets first. So we'll fire those at the supporting elements. There we go, 1 and 2. And then we'll switch over to the S-13 rockets. So those are the significantly larger rockets. And there we go, a large volley of rockets on the main battle tanks. And of course, we're very low to the ground, so we have to dispense lots and lots of countermeasures, and fingers crossed that we don't have a man-pad launch. So we have to take a really good evasive maneuvers, lots and lots of countermeasures, so that we don't get hit by that man-pad. Now, of course, I'm looking back, not just to look at the target, but I'm looking for that launch. If you can see a SAM being launched at you, the chances of you being able to defeat it is much greater, because obviously you can take evasive maneuvers and also saturate the space behind you with countermeasures as well. So this was the Su-25. I almost said A-10, but yeah, as you guys can see, tanks down there are burning, things down there are burning, even though these rockets might not be precise, but because they have such a significantly large warhead, that they do cause significant amount of damage and cause chaos down there. Anyways, let's go ahead and look at the debrief. Let's look at how the targets were impacted, and we'll discuss this even further. Alright guys, so here we are on the desert floor. So this is the replay for the A-10 sortie that we just flew. And I love to do this in VR, by the way, and it's so cool. It looks like you're actually there, and you see the missiles come down, you see the tanks blowing up and all that in 3D. It actually feels like you're there. So if you guys, I'm not sure if it's coming through the screen, if you look up in the middle of the screen, there's like a white line of smoke in the sky. So that's me in the A-10 firing the AGM-65 missiles. So that's the only indication that you can see from down here. So I've turned away, and that's it. So you can't hear the A-10, you can't see the A-10, and those missiles are in flight right now towards those tanks. And this is a tremendous capability. This is the most safest you can be. This is standoff at its best. And those missiles, there we go. Impact 1 and 2, 3, and of course 4. So 4 missiles impacting precisely, accurately in succession. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the best this is as good as it gets. This is close air support at its finest. However, you guys might be wondering, so what's the downside? So the downside is, guys, when you have the type of philosophy that you have in the West of making the best weapons, making the most precise weapons, the most high-tech weapons, that's going to cost you. It literally costs a lot of money. That's one of the first downsides. So a single AGM-65 missile, I'm not sure how much it costs now, but it's a significantly costly weapon because it is so jam-packed full of high-tech stuff, and it's very difficult to manufacture. So the better quality weapons obviously are going to cost more. They're going to be harder to produce. They're going to require high-tech facilities to produce these weapons. It's going to cost a lot of money. You're going to need highly trained technicians and highly trained personnel to manufacture those weapons. And obviously, that's all okay in low-intensity kind of conflicts where you have overmatch over the enemy, such as Desert Storm. But what happens if you get into a kind of a global conflict like the Second World War with an adversary that can match your industrial capacity, that can match you one for one in terms of units and forces and stuff like that. So then the battle gets drawn out into a long attritional battle, a high intensity battle for a lasting period. So then these high tech weapons, these really really costly weapons, are gonna become a burden. They're gonna become a burden. So there we go. So that's just us. We're dropping the Mark 84 bombs now. So the bombs have been dropped now. And you can't even hear the A-10. Boom, there we go. Devastating, absolutely devastating. So, dropping flares, we've pulled up, we're safe, we're flying away, the bombs have impacted, and we're out of here. So this is fantastic. This is great. This is how standoff is meant to be. But as I said, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So I'm not sure how much the A-10 costs, but I'm sure the A-10 is a lot more costlier than the Su-25. And an AGM-65 is a lot more costlier than a folding fin rocket. And as I said, it's okay if you're just partaking in these low-intensity conflicts, but if you get into a long, protracted, drawn-out war of attrition, it's going to put a very, very heavy strain on your economy and on your system. Alright guys, welcome back. So here we are in the replay for the Su-25A sortie. So again, looking up in the sky, we don't see anything, we don't hear anything. There's absolutely zero indications of any aircraft flying towards this location. Very, very difficult to see and very, very scary to think about. Now, instead of BMPs this time and T-55As, we have M113s and we have M60A3s. So this is the same kind of hardware that the Warsaw Pact or the NATO countries would have been using by the late 80s, the end of the Cold War. Now, getting back to what I was saying about high-tech weaponry. So high-tech weaponry is great. It can inflict heavy casualties on your enemy and protect your own soldiers and airmen. However, those high-tech weapons cost a lot of money, and they require really highly skilled labor and really highly technical people to produce them. And they require really high-tech facilities to produce those weapons, and it's going to cost a lot of money, and that becomes a problem in a World War type situation where everything is in shortage. You have a shortage of labor, you have a shortage of money, you have a shortage of resources. Now, this will segue into Soviet thinking and Soviet doctrine. So the Soviets designed their post-World War II army based on their experiences in the Second World War. They call it the Great Patriotic War. So whatever they learned in the Second World War, that's what they apply to their weapons now. And you guys can see, there we go, a white puff of smoke. So that's, there we go, two rockets, the two S-25s. Whoa! Whoop, there we go. that was way too close, guys. That was way too close. It broke DCS. That kind of like almost broke DCS. But anyways, so yeah, that's the Su-25. So just recovering from the shock of those rockets impacting in VR. And there it is. That's us in the Su-25 flying away, dumping flares. So if you have a look, if we just do a battle damage assessment. So we have 3 tanks destroyed, 1 currently cooking off. Yeah, there we go. So that's 3 tanks destroyed. Maybe a couple of support element APCs damaged. So yeah, the Su-25, not as great as the A-10, but it still gets the job done. It still managed to take out a couple of tanks. It certainly managed to ruin the day of everyone who was down here, but definitely 100% not as accurate, not as precise, not as on point, and not as standoffish as the A-10. However, the important thing is, guys, as I mentioned, it's to understand that the Soviets designed their equipment, their military equipment, with the Second World War in mind. So they they would design weapons to be good enough, to be just good enough to do what needs to be done at that moment, but for it to be cheap enough to be mass produced. So they weren't looking for the best. They weren't looking for the greatest. I'm sure the Soviets weren't technologically on par with the West. I mean, you have like Soviet aircraft designers such as Rostislav Belyakov. So that's the man that replaced Artyom Mikoyan, the head of the Mikoyan Design Bureau. So he was explaining in an interview with a Western camera crew back in the late 80s that the Soviet Union wasn't on par with the West in terms of technical know-how and in terms of microelectronics. So, and that's related to what we're talking about here, that is aircraft avionics systems. So they weren't technologically on par with the West, but even if they were, they would still be cautious about designing a system, a weapon system that is way too technical, that is way too costly to produce, that is way too difficult to manufacture. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'd love to hear what you guys think on this topic. So I just, as I said at the beginning, I thought that this is a great topic to discuss. It's a great topic to think about. It is it's an important thing to keep in mind when you look at the various different weapons that the various different countries produce. It's not just the weapons themselves, but the doctrine and the philosophy behind those weapons as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, remember to leave a thumbs up, leave a like. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, please take care, and bye-bye.